If you don't have a fire, you can't really survive out here. If you can't start a fire in the rain, then that limits you.
When news broke that Bear Brown, the self-proclaimed king of extreme from Alaskan Bush People, had vanished from television screens after 14 seasons, fans were stunned. What really happened behind the cameras? Was it the domestic violence arrest that shook his marriage, or the endless custody battles that tore his family apart? Stick with us as we uncover the real reason Bear Brown disappeared from Alaskan Bush People, and what it means for reality television as we know it. Solomon Isaiah Freedom Brown wasn't just another reality TV personality. Better known as Bear, he became the wild heart of Discovery Channel's most controversial wilderness family. Born in Wrangell, Alaska on June 10, 1987, Bear grew up as the third son in a family that would capture America's imagination and skepticism for nearly a decade. But Bear's story begins long before the cameras arrived. The Brown family's origin tale reads like something out of a frontier novel. Billy Brown, Bear's father, claimed they fled to the Alaskan wilderness in the 1980s to escape the modern world's corruption. According to family lore, Billy wanted his children to experience true freedom, learning to hunt, fish, and survive without depending on society's infrastructure. Bear's childhood was allegedly spent learning skills most kids only see in movies. He claimed to have killed his first deer at age 8, built his first shelter at 10, and mastered tree climbing by his early teens. These weren't just family stories. They became the foundation of his television persona. The Browns burst onto television screens in 2014, claiming to have lived off the grid in Alaska for 30 years. Discovery Channel marketed the show as an authentic glimpse into a family that had rejected modern civilization. Bear quickly emerged as the breakout star, with his tree-climbing antics, extreme stunts, and howling at the moon. While his father Billy preached family values and self-sufficiency, Bear embodied raw wilderness energy that made him impossible to ignore. What viewers didn't see was how carefully crafted Bear's image was from the beginning. Production notes, later leaked by former crew members, revealed that producers encouraged Bear to amp up his wild behavior. His signature howl wasn't spontaneous. It was suggested by the show's creative team as a way to make him more memorable. Bear's appeal went beyond his daredevil persona. He was the hunter, the risk-taker, the one who'd scale 50-foot trees just to scout for game. Producers loved him because he delivered drama without prompting. His signature moves, sprinting through the forest, leaping across ravines, calling himself the King of Extreme, became the show's most memorable moments. Bear's rise coincided with a broader cultural phenomenon. In the 2010s, Americans were increasingly fascinated with survivalist culture. Shows like Survivor, Naked and Afraid, and Man vs. Wild had primed audiences for wilderness content. The Brown family offered something different, not just survival challenges, but a supposed lifestyle that represented complete independence from modern society. By 2016, Bear had appeared in over 100 episodes. His Instagram following exploded as fans watched him transform from a wild-haired bush kid into a reality TV phenomenon. The social media presence was carefully managed by Discovery Channel's marketing team, who understood that Bear's authenticity was the show's most valuable asset. The show reportedly earned the family millions, with some estimates suggesting Billy Brown alone accumulated a net worth of $6 million before his death. Bear's individual earnings were never disclosed, but industry insiders suggest the main cast members earned between $50,000 and $100,000 per episode in the show's peak seasons. Alaskan Bush People arrived at a perfect cultural moment. Post-recession America was questioning consumer culture and corporate dependency. The Brown family seemed to offer an alternative, a return to simpler times when families could survive through their own skills and determination. Bear embodied this fantasy perfectly, representing youthful energy and fearless independence. But the cultural phenomenon was built on shaky foundations that would soon begin to crumble. Behind the cameras, the pressure was mounting. Court documents would later reveal that Alaskan Bush People wasn't quite what it seemed. The family didn't actually live in the bush year-round. According to locals and former crew members, the Browns stayed at the Icy Strait Lodge when cameras weren't rolling. The reality show was allegedly more scripted than spontaneous. The production schedule alone made the family's supposed lifestyle impossible. Filming occurred in intensive blocks, sometimes 12 to 16 hours per day for weeks at a time. Between seasons, the family lived in rental properties in Juneau and later in Washington state. The primitive cabins and shelters viewers saw were often constructed by professional crews and existed primarily as filming locations. Local Alaskans grew increasingly skeptical of the Browns' claims. Hoonah residents reported seeing the family at restaurants, hotels, and shopping centers throughout the filming periods. Some locals felt the show misrepresented Alaska and its people, portraying the state as a lawless wilderness when most Alaskan communities are modern and well-connected. The financial stakes kept climbing. Discovery Channel had invested heavily in the Brown family narrative, and Bear was expected to deliver increasingly extreme content. The network needed drama, romance, conflict, anything to keep viewers hooked. Bear found himself trapped between his on-screen persona and a reality that was becoming harder to maintain. Internal memos from Discovery Channel, later revealed in legal proceedings, showed how much pressure the network placed on the Brown family to generate storylines. Producers suggested romantic entanglements, manufactured emergencies, and escalating conflicts between family members. Bear, as the most charismatic and unpredictable family member, bore much of this pressure. Former crew members described Bear as increasingly anxious and volatile between takes. The young man who seemed so naturally comfortable in the wilderness was actually struggling with the constant performance demands. His genuine personality, which included quiet, introspective moments, was edited out in favor of his more extreme behaviors. Then came the legal troubles. In 2015, Billy and Joshua Bam Bam Brown pleaded guilty to fraud charges for falsifying residency documents to claim Alaska Permanent Fund dividends. They'd claimed to live in Alaska while actually residing elsewhere, defrauding the state of roughly $20,000. While Bear played the carefree extremist on camera, his personal life was unraveling. The constant filming schedule, legal pressures, and performance demands were taking their toll. Friends from his pre-fame days noticed significant changes in his personality. The spontaneous, genuinely adventurous young man was becoming increasingly anxious and unpredictable. In August 2019, he got engaged to Raven Adams after meeting her at his brother Noah's wedding. But their relationship became a public disaster that would haunt him for years. Raven, a photographer from Texas, was initially attracted to Bear's adventurous spirit and apparent authenticity, but she quickly discovered the reality behind his television persona. 2 weeks after announcing their engagement, they called it quits. Raven took to Instagram, writing that the drama, the articles, and the harassment were too much for her. She was pregnant with their son River at the time. What she didn't say publicly was that she'd begun to understand how constructed Bear's public image was and how different his private behavior could be. Bear's relationship with Raven revealed the impossible position he was in. On television, he was portrayed as a romantic figure, the wild but good-hearted wilderness man who would make a devoted partner. In reality, he was struggling with the psychological pressure of maintaining a fictional persona while dealing with legal troubles and family dysfunction. Raven later described feeling like she was dating two different people. The Bear she'd initially met seemed genuine and caring, but under stress, a different personality emerged, one that was controlling, volatile, and sometimes frightening. She began to realize that even Bear himself wasn't sure which version was the real him anymore. What followed was a custody battle so bitter it would make headlines for years. February 2020 marked the beginning of Bear's darkest period. Raven, still pregnant, filed a restraining order against him. Court documents painted a disturbing picture. She accused Bear of erratic and abusive behavior, claiming he'd yell, slam things, and prevent her from leaving rooms. More shocking were allegations that he'd threatened her with guns and boasted that gun laws don't apply to him. The restraining order documents provided the first detailed look at Bear's private behavior. According to Raven's testimony, Bear would swing between extreme affection and controlling anger. He allegedly monitored her communications, demanded to know her whereabouts at all times, and became enraged when she tried to maintain independence. Raven alleged Bear admitted his behavior was caused by cocaine use, a claim he vehemently denied. The cocaine allegations were particularly damaging because they contradicted the Brown family's wholesome image. Bear had always portrayed himself as someone who lived purely off the land, avoiding modern corruptions like drugs and alcohol. She dropped the restraining order just days before River's premature birth in March 2020. Bear wouldn't meet his son until the baby was 6 months old. The custody war that followed was brutal. Bear filed for joint custody, even requesting a DNA test to prove paternity. Raven responded by demanding he receive only restricted visitation. Sources claimed Bear tortured Raven during the legal battle, allegedly threatening to take the baby and show up at her house unannounced. The custody dispute wasn't just a personal matter. It became a public relations nightmare for Discovery Channel. Court documents were public records, meaning journalists and bloggers could access detailed accounts of Bear's alleged behavior. The wholesome wilderness family image was crumbling in real time. Discovery Channel's editing team worked overtime to keep the family drama off-screen. While Bear posted cheerful wilderness content, court documents told a different story. The show continued portraying the Browns as a tight-knit family conquering the Alaskan wilderness together. But Bear and Raven's toxic cycle of breakups and reconciliations was becoming impossible to hide. The network employed sophisticated editing techniques to maintain the illusion. Bear's erratic behavior was edited out or recontextualized to seem playful rather than concerning. His absences during custody proceedings were explained as solo wilderness adventures. The show's narrative became increasingly divorced from reality. They reunited in late 2020, married in January 2022, and had 2 more children. But the pattern continued. Just 2 months after their wedding, on March 11, 2022, Bear was arrested for 4th-degree domestic violence assault. According to police reports, an argument while moving into a camping trailer turned physical. Raven told officers Bear was acting crazy and had pushed her down, pinning her on a bed. The domestic violence arrest was a watershed moment. Unlike the earlier allegations, this involved criminal charges and police reports that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. Discovery Channel executives realized their star had become a serious liability. Police body camera footage, later obtained by media outlets, showed Bear in a manic state, alternating between aggression and attempts at charm. Officers noted his erratic behavior and apparent inability to understand the seriousness of the situation. This wasn't the composed wilderness expert viewers knew. It was someone who seemed to be having a psychological break. And then, everything changed. February 7, 2021, altered the trajectory of Alaskan Bush People forever. Billy Brown, the family patriarch, suffered a fatal seizure at their Washington home at age 68. Family members reportedly screamed, "Wake up, Dad," as emergency crews rushed to help. But it was too late. Billy's death wasn't just a personal tragedy. It was the end of the show's central narrative. He had been the family's anchor, the one who maintained the fiction that they were a successful wilderness family. Without him, the contradictions and problems that had been building for years became impossible to manage. Bear posted on Instagram, "We are heartbroken to announce that our beloved patriarch Billy Brown passed away last night after suffering from a seizure. He was our best friend, a wonderful and loving dad, granddad, and husband, and he will be dearly missed." Bear's grief was complicated by guilt and anger. He'd spent years struggling with his father's demands to maintain their fictional public image, but he also genuinely loved and respected Billy. The loss left him without guidance at a time when he desperately needed direction. The show limped through 2 more seasons, but the magic was gone. Without Billy's larger-than-life presence, the family dynamic collapsed. Discovery Channel quietly stopped production after season 14 ended in 2022. No official cancellation was announced, but court documents filed in 2024 referred to the show in past tense. Discovery Channel's decision to end Alaskan Bush People wasn't announced with fanfare. The network simply stopped scheduling new seasons, leaving fans to wonder what had happened. Industry insiders revealed that the decision was based on multiple factors: declining ratings, the family's legal troubles, and the impossibility of maintaining the show's premise after Billy's death. The end of Alaskan Bush People left Bear adrift. His marriage to Raven continued its destructive pattern. They separated in December 2022, reconciled, had another child in August 2024, then announced their final split in April 2025. Raven posted, "After years of trying, we have decided that it's better to co-parent and find happiness." Bear's financial situation also became precarious. While he'd earned substantial money during the show's run, he'd never developed financial literacy or planning skills. The family had lived expensively during their peak earning years, assuming the television money would continue indefinitely. Meanwhile, the Browns faced a bitter legal battle. Robert Mahon, Billy's former business partner, sued the estate for $500,000, claiming he was owed money from a $20,000 investment. The lawsuit dragged the family's finances into public view, revealing the millions they'd earned from the show and how quickly it was disappearing. Bear's relationship with his siblings fractured too. His brother Matt had already distanced himself from the family, battling addiction and facing sexual assault allegations. In 2024, Noah and his wife sought a restraining order against their sister Rain, alleging harassment and threats. The once united wolf pack was falling apart. After the show's quiet end, Bear moved in with his brother Gabe in Washington State. In November 2024, he posted a video explaining they were staying in a rental house while saving to buy property, hopefully in Alaska. He insisted the show wasn't canceled, just on the back burner due to network changes. This statement revealed how difficult it was for Bear to accept that his television career was over. He'd spent his entire adult life as a reality TV star, and he struggled to imagine himself as anything else. The wilderness skills he'd supposedly mastered were largely fictional, leaving him unprepared for life outside the entertainment industry. Bear launched a YouTube project called Alaskan Bush People, Behind the Scenes with Bear Brown, promising to reveal untold stories from the show's early days. But reportedly, the project stalled, with no episodes released by the promised summer 2024 date. His mother, Ami, continued battling health issues. After beating lung cancer, she faced pneumonia multiple times, including a hospitalization in February 2025. The family that once claimed to thrive in isolation now relied heavily on modern medical care. The biggest misconception about Bear's disappearance is that he chose to leave. Court documents and insider sources suggest the decision wasn't his. Discovery Channel reportedly grew tired of the legal troubles, custody battles, and domestic violence arrests. The network that once promoted the Browns as wholesome wilderness pioneers couldn't sustain the narrative anymore. People also misunderstand the show's authenticity. Many fans still believe the Browns lived full-time in the bush, but according to multiple sources, locals, and even former crew members, much of the show was staged. Construction crews built structures for the production team. The family stayed in hotels and lodges between filming. The reality was largely manufactured. The question of authenticity in reality television is complex, but Alaskan Bush People represented an extreme case of deception. Unlike other reality shows that are obviously produced entertainment, the Browns program was marketed as documentary-style content, showing how a real family actually lived. Despite the controversies, Bear Brown changed reality television. His extreme persona inspired countless imitators. Young viewers learned to question what they saw on screen, understanding that reality TV might be neither real nor reality. His 107 episodes created a cultural phenomenon that made people examine their relationship with wilderness, family, and truth. The show generated massive profits for Discovery Channel and created a template for family-based reality programming. It proved audiences would watch even when they suspected or knew they were being deceived. That legacy continues influencing how networks produce reality content today. Bear's influence extended beyond television into social media and internet culture. His extreme stunts and catchphrases became memes, spreading his image far beyond the show's actual viewership. When the truth about his behavior emerged, it affected not just the show's fans, but a broader cultural conversation about authenticity, masculinity, and the wilderness lifestyle. The Bear Brown who howled at the moon in 2014 barely resembles the man posting on Instagram today. At 37, he's a father of 3 navigating co-parenting with an ex-wife he's separated from multiple times. The wild energy remains, but it's tempered by legal troubles, family trauma, and the weight of public scrutiny. The young man who claimed to live purely off the land now admits to searching for property to purchase, acknowledging the need for modern financial systems. His social media presence, something the original Bush Bear would have supposedly rejected, has become his primary connection to fans. The transformation from wilderness extremist to suburban single dad couldn't be more complete. Despite his problems, Bear has shown some capacity for personal growth. His relationship with his children appears genuine, and he's made efforts to be present in their lives despite his co-parenting challenges with Raven. Bear Brown's disappearance from Alaskan Bush People reveals uncomfortable truths about reality television. Networks manufacture authenticity while destroying the real people behind the characters. Families are pushed to maintain impossible narratives until they crack under pressure. The Browns earned millions portraying a lifestyle they didn't actually live, and the cost was their family unity. The show's quiet cancellation after Billy's death suggests Discovery Channel knew the enterprise had run its course. Without the patriarch to hold the illusion together, the contradictions became too obvious. Bear's arrest for domestic violence was reportedly the final straw. The network couldn't reconcile their wholesome wilderness family with police reports and restraining orders. The Brown family's story has implications for the entire reality television industry. It demonstrates the psychological cost of forcing real people to maintain fictional personas for extended periods. The pressure to generate drama and conflict can push participants toward destructive behavior that continues long after the cameras stop rolling. What does this mean for reality TV? The genre continues evolving, but audiences are more skeptical than ever. Bear Brown's story serves as a cautionary tale about the price of manufactured fame. The real reason he disappeared wasn't just one scandal or tragedy. It was the cumulative weight of trying to be someone he never really was. Bear Brown didn't disappear from Alaskan Bush People. The show disappeared from under him. When the cameras stopped rolling and the checks stopped coming, he was left with 3 kids, a broken marriage, and a reputation built on fiction. The king of extreme became another casualty of reality, TV's relentless hunger for drama. Perhaps his greatest act of survival will be building a real life after the cameras finally turned away. At 37, Bear still has time to become the man he always pretended to be: a devoted father, a responsible partner, and someone who doesn't need to howl at the moon to prove his worth. The wilderness he once claimed as his kingdom was always a soundstage, but the life he's building now, however imperfect, is finally his own. Whether he can succeed in this ultimate survival challenge remains to be seen, but for the first time in over a decade, the outcome isn't predetermined by a television script. If this story shed light on what really happens when reality TV stops being polite and starts getting real, consider subscribing to our channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the stories behind your favorite shows, because sometimes the truth is more extreme than anything you'll see on screen.